So maybe for one last time, we are going to have a conversation about Goldberg, although actually after some of his comments on the Ariel Helwani show, I think he may do one more match. That's not the point, because we have to ask the question, was Goldberg right to be mad after his retirement match? So yes, first and foremost, I would tell you to go and watch the Ariel Helwani interview that he has done with Goldberg, because otherwise I'm not stealing his quotes, but I'm using it to make a video, so I like to advertise the source material. I think that's only fair. But Ariel did get the first interview from one Billis Goldberg after his retirement match of the weekend, and it's kind of interesting, and I just wanted to touch on a few points, because most of the way I make videos these days is either something big happens in wrestling, or I get lots of messages, usually on X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it. What do you think? What do you think? And eventually I start replying to people and going, I may as well make a general reply, and I feel very blessed that people actually care about that. I want to start with the comments he made about the Gunther chops, which are very interesting. So Gunther was chopping him as he would do, and Goldberg started laughing. I just thought they planned it in. Now, we may be being worked, right? I always like to remember that in pro wrestling. Sometimes we're so quick to buy into a quote before going, wait, it's sports entertainment. Maybe they want to create a little bit of a palaver, but we'll take it as read because that's the argument that's kind of happening on the internet. And Goldberg said he burst out laughing, he broke character because he was expecting the chops to hurt more than they did, and he was actually impressed with how well Gunther was as a professional wrestler or as a worker. That's how I took it, right? Some people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that to Gunther. He tried to bury him. If you listen to the interview, he praises Gunther like crazy and sells him as like a modern-day warrior of 2025. Like, he is clearly a big fan of this man's work. And I can only assume, I'm trying to look at it from a human side of here, and you know my content, I'll always try and delve into that realm because I think it's interesting, and not a lot of other people do it. But if Goldberg's going into this match at 58 years old, maybe a little bit apprehensive, maybe a little bit nervous, and he knows he has to be chopped because, you know, you're facing Gunther, it's the same with the spear and the jackhammer, you expect these things, and then he does get hit, and he's like, man, that didn't hurt at all. Maybe you were laughing I get that I'm maybe being a bit too protective here, but also I don't think I am. But maybe you would burst out a laugh like, oh, what was I even worried about? And then you catch yourself like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That's the man's signature move and he's charged up his meter. I just do not think he meant it disparagingly because he is so complimentary about Gunther. It would be bizarre to all of a sudden have that 1-2. Now, I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that's how I took it. It would be weird for somebody to sort of take a swipe at somebody and then also be so nice of them. I just think that's what it was. I think he was saying that Gunther is such a good professional wrestler / worker, as I repeat myself, that he can throw these chops that look like they hurt like stink, and they don't. But I can tell you, I know sometimes Gunther has thrown chops and they've killed people. We're not going to get into it, but I know that for a fact. We'll just push that over to one side. So I suppose it goes to show that is why Gunther is so good at what he does, because he will operate depending on the person he's in the ring with. And yes, if you have a 58-year-old Goldberg who has been through the ringer, given all the sports and athletes he's done throughout his career, you should treat him a little bit nicer. Not everything has to be murder, death, kill in professional wrestling. Actually, Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer Live had an amazing conversation about that the other day. He was like, who is it? Who taught wrestlers to lay it in? That's not what wrestling is. You should check it out. And shout out to Brian Alvarez, one of my favorite people in the media space. I enjoy him muchly. So that was part one. And that's kind of how I see that. I don't think it's here nor there. I genuinely think Goldberg feels a little bit disappointed that he laughed and he shouldn't have done it. And that's not a professional thing to do. Now, the bigger one, hence why I've left it to part two, is Goldberg was not particularly happy with his retirement match. He didn't like the fact that his speech was cut off. He didn't like the fact that there wasn't more build to it. And then he started building it 3 weeks ago, even though the original angle was 7 to 9 months ago, whenever the flub it was. And to use his words, not mine, some of the things that happened, they wouldn't have done to a John Cena and they wouldn't have done to The Undertaker. I think I understand his point. The Undertaker's not a great example because The Undertaker retired in the Thunderdome, which actually, if The Undertaker wants to come back and do a proper retirement, I'll probably give him the green light on that one. The Undertaker retiring in the Thunderdome is a very much a Vince McMahon, oh my gosh, we're stuck in this one building, what can we do to pop ratings kind of a deal. And Mark Calloway would just say yes all the time for some reason. He probably should have, what's the word? But just said no to that and held off until we had fans again. And I'm in so many different worlds about this. A lot of people have compared it to Sting. And Sting's retirement to me is the greatest retirement of all time. And if there is a legend in the wrestling business, I think it should be done like Sting. I'm talking about everybody. You mentioned John Cena. Well, John Cena's having a Sting-like retirement. Like, it's a year-long thing. That's incredible. One of the major stories of WWE this year. Totally earned. Jeff Jarrett, when he retired, that's who I was looking for. Jeff Jarrett absolutely should get something like that. Again, because we've grown up with him and he's still very, very active. Ric Flair would be another one in 2008. I mean, what happened after. But we put a lot of bells and whistles into that. So we have done it before. sure, but Sting's is still my number one. The Great Muta retirement was good as well. I think that's online. You can watch that. It's very, very special. It feels like a pageant almost. I mean, the whole show is orientated around him. And of course, the whole show of Revolution was orientated around Sting. And I do think the whole show of Saturday Night's Main Event was orientated around Goldberg. Like, nothing else in that show was worth a damn. I'm not trying to be horrible. I don't mind all the Jelly Roll stuff, but it's kind of just there. And you can catch up with social media clips, whereas if you're a Goldberg fan, you wanted to take this in. And I wonder if it would have been different if the end speech hadn't been cut off. I don't think anybody can defend that. I think it's bad. It may tie into this Seth Rollins injury. It may not tie into the Seth Rollins injury. I think you also have to accept that it's live television. But I think that's what Goldberg said as well. I don't want to be getting him wrong here, but once again, how I took it is that if it had been on a PLE or a pay-per-view, you kind of control the time window for that. Whereas you put it on live television, especially it's network or cable, whatever the flub it is, in America, come 10 o'clock, or wherever that show ended, 10, 11, 12, it's done. They have to go to the news, they have to go to the next programming. You do not get to go past the hour, which is why it's a dangerous thing to do, because if you do have some timing issues, you're not going to be able to do your speech. And obviously we came back from commercial, Goldberg starts to talk. They have now released it onto social media, and it's it really is a good talk. Say whatever you want about the man, but the part when he talks about respecting everybody regardless of color or credence or religion, man, could not agree with that anymore, especially given the current state of the world. I mean, some of the messages I get on social media these days, you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's always been crazy. Like, I can't believe you gave this opinion. I want you to die. You're like, okay, you're being silly. But now people are getting personal, and they are bringing aspects of my own personal life that I only ever talk about when asked. I've never thrown it in anybody's face. So when you do see somebody like Goldberg talk about these things, it does just give you a little bit of hope. And I watched that speech, felt warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. It was much needed, and I think that would be awesome if it could have been spread over an NBC. But I guess it's still on the internet. It's kind of an either-or thing these days. But I can understand Goldberg is good friends with Sting, as far as I know. So I can imagine that as how he saw it. And obviously, Sting was still active in AEW, and that was I have 2 points here, right, to cut myself off. Sting was active in that company from 2020 or 2021. It was during the pandemic still, so I'm going to guess 2020. I could be wrong. But either way, it was a good 2 to 3 years, right? And he was the legend. He was the last outlaw. He was that guy. Actually, a Paul Heyman idea. Paul Heyman used to do this in ECW. You don't have lots of legends. You have one legend. His legend was Terry Funk. And there were some people that sort of had names, but the ultimate legend in AEW was Sting. And that's why he felt so cool. That's why he felt like such a badass. And he kept up with the guys he was with, right? It started off with that cinematic match. Then he was doing crazy bumps. And he's just the best. He's just the man. So when he wins the tag team titles and retires with the tag team championship, it didn't feel like we just built to Revolution because, oh, Sting's retiring. It was all planned out. It was all fun. It would be the same with John Cena. I think that's what Goldberg was expecting. But of course, we haven't seen Goldberg for a few years. And in terms of continuity over the last 20 years, I suppose, as is his right, I'm not criticizing this. He's come and he's gone. He's come and he's gone. 2003 run in WWE, not very good. He'd be the first to admit it. 2016 run in WWE, brilliant, because he was treated like Goldberg. The only thing that makes me, I'll say roll my eyes, that's way too strong, because nothing to do with me. It's just an opinion. It's just my thoughts in my brain. Is I kind of think that if Goldberg wanted that, he probably should have gone to AEW. And once again, I don't mean that as a knock on WWE, but it just feels to me like AEW does have more more freedom. That's not the right word either. I don't know. I don't think I can explain it. It's just a feeling. I suppose because John Cena is considered by WWE to be the GOAT, so he gets this amazing send-off. Ric Flair got it in 2008, but Kurt Angle didn't get it, and Kurt Angle was one of the best of all time. Probably be other wrestlers that I'm not 100% thinking of right now that weren't retired in the right way or sort of didn't get that flag-waving moment. Whereas from what I can tell, Tony Khan is quite big on, taking people, especially he knew from his past, and putting them on a pedestal, I suppose. But it's a fair pedestal, not in a bad way, once again. But Goldberg did make some comments a few years ago where he said that he thought AEW was goofy. Now, if he thinks AEW is goofy, it's more power to him, right? I don't get where he's coming from. I don't know what clips he would have seen. Maybe he saw some of the goofy stuff they do, but hey, man, you're talking to me. Wrestling has to have goofy stuff in it. If you got rid of the goofy wrestling for life, I would be devastated. I'm still laughing at that New Day into Dominic Mysterio AJ Styles skit from Raw. It is so fun. It could be the best skit of the year. I need to think down and think about it. But Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods in their funeral attire looking so sad. And then I'm repeating myself. Xavier Woods saying there's going to be hell to pay, right into AJ Styles praying for the demise of Dom. So Dominic trying to outpray him. That's good television, man. And listen, if you're into your serious wrestling, you think that's goofy and you can hate it, but it has to be there from my vantage point. So I don't know what he saw, but I genuinely think, I don't think it's going to happen now. That's not what I'm saying. But I genuinely think if he hadn't have made those comments, he probably could have gone to AEW and just... Tony Khan seems to have great respect for professional wrestling. I can imagine, given the stuff that he was into, and I really shouldn't put his words in my mouth, I don't know, but I mean, maybe he loved Goldberg, but he kind of felt like he wouldn't have been a Goldberg kind of a guy, but I don't know. But I do think he understands and respects. It's one of the great reasons why him being the promoter of AEW is a huge tick box. The sacrifice and the punishment and the sheer ordeal that being a professional wrestler can be. I mean, let's go check out, type it in now, the apparent reaction he had to the Adam Cole news at the weekend. It sounded like he was just not despondent, but really hurt and wounded by this because he understand how bad it was. So if he sat down with Goldberg, and of course he would have brought Goldberg in. I mean, the price may have been an issue, but Goldberg does cause a fuss, as we've seen the last couple of weeks. So if you really need an injection in the arm, you can go to one of these legends. I think he would have done it. I think Goldberg would have got the send-off. I think he would have had a revolution all of his own. And, I mean, maybe it would have been a Wardlow or something like that. I don't think the opponent was a problem. I loved that match. I thought it was a really, really good match for what it should have been. And it was actually better than a 5-minute bosh, bosh, bosh. So I got that one totally wrong. I really enjoyed the leg sell and everything else we got to do. But that's what I think it would have happened in the way that Goldberg would have wanted to, which what makes those comments a little bit strange. I do want to point out as well, I love Goldberg a lot, right? I'm not saying that everything he's done. Again, Bret Hart's my favourite wrestler ever. So I understand there's a bit of a back and forth here. But it turns into personal stuff. My grandma got his book signed for me when I was a kid, and he was just so nice to my nan that I got to meet, and he was so nice to me. Like, when I was a kid, right? And that's always been his thing. He said it in his speech. And when you have an interaction with someone like that, and also I loved his work too, I understand. And he injured Charles Robinson at Saturday Night's Main Event. There is I wouldn't call it a wonderful irony, because I don't want anyone to get hurt, although Charles Robinson seems fine. There is an irony to that, which is not great. That's all I'm going to say and move on. Because I think, Charles Robinson's a 60-year-old man. Goldberg probably needs to spear people a little bit less. But it's difficult because one of the reasons we all love that spear is because he just speared people. So what do? Don't pretend to me that if we had worked that spear a little bit more, it wouldn't have become the beast that it became. I'm not saying that I like it. I've been speared properly in matches that I've done, and it sucks, and you think you've broken all of your ribs. So I really do hope Charles Robinson is okay. But that's why I kind of struggled to sort of take a shot at him, because watch him jackhammer people back in the day. Death. Spear, death. But again, we loved it. We cheered it. And I was one of them. That's why you should tune into WCW. Like, holy crap, man. What is going on? I'm not saying it's good, not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that was the feeling. So, but that wasn't great. The Charles Robinson thing, it wasn't. But I think mostly what I'm trying to get at here is I just think it's sad that Goldberg couldn't get in a way that sort of made him feel good. And he said, like, in 2 weeks' time, he's going to spill all the beans. So maybe there's some extra stuff that we don't know. And there's another story going around, again, speculation. We don't know, all rumors, that Gage, his son, was offered an NIL deal, which is the WWE stuff. And he said no, because the money, too high, too low. I don't know. That wasn't clarified. So, I don't want to make a comment on that. But I don't see how else you could have done it within the realms of WWE and the way they tell stories and the amount of matches they have and the events, and they like the way to pivot. You could have done it at WrestleMania properly, but then again, the whole show couldn't have been revolving around Goldberg, because nothing is going to outdo WrestleMania these days. Like, hence they can go back to Las Vegas 2 years in a row. But I think mostly as a fan watching on, it just would have been nicer if everyone could have skipped down the road. But we don't have all the context yet either. I'm sure Triple H will address this, or he may go quiet about it. But Goldberg will give us more, and I'm sure that's why he wanted to go on Ariel Helwani. The only thing to me that seems very black and white is that we should have aired the speech. But then at the same time, if Seth Rollins did legitimately get injured on there and the show goes down the toilet, that's the risk that you run. What do you want to do? Ring up the NBC HQ and say, we want to go along? Well, you can't. The contract says that you're not allowed. Could we have cut the Goldberg match down? Potentially, but I'm sure that would have been difficult too. I just think it's a shame, right? I don't want to take shots at either party because I just think that's unnecessary. I think too much happens on the internet anyway. But I remember the awesome feeling I had when Sting did retire, and it really is it's like one of the best pay-per-views ever because of that moment. And as we all know, wrestling is about moments. And I feel like Goldberg sort of had 80% of that. The 20% of that was the speech, and those two things were breaking up. But it's a very, very interesting interview, and Goldberg is very honest whether you agree with him or not. And I'd always appreciate somebody telling me the truth on how they feel about it. And sure, maybe you can say he had illusions of grandeur and that there was actually no way to give him the platform that he wanted, but he is still allowed to walk that platform. I don't think that gets said enough either. Whether it's a correct assumption or totally nuts, if Goldberg feels like that's the way he wants to go out, then he should feel that way. You can't just throw these things to one side because somebody else doesn't agree with you. I mean, so many people didn't want him to have one last match. I'm glad that he did. And I would say I'm glad he got to draw a line under it, but it doesn't sound like he has. It sounds like maybe we're going to do it again. And yeah, that was my big thing. I was just like, we should have done it in AEW. I know, I'm just going off the Sting thing, but we should have done it in AEW. Maybe the Kurt Angle one I haven't got over yet, which isn't Baron Corbin's fault, by the way. Baron Corbin, you go watch that, does a fantastic job. That man is safe as houses. What a good worker. What a good professional wrestler. Again, very much a Gunther type guy in terms of how he knows how to work with people and make sure they're safe. But there was a better option on the table, which of course was John Cena, that we could have done, because that, like, all John Cena did was interrupt Elias or Ezekiel or Elijah, whoever he was at that point. I'm pretty sure he was Elias. And sometimes you want to give the fans what they wanted. Like, I don't think anybody had a problem with Gunther being the opponent for Goldberg, right? The only other person that would have been a viable option would have been Big E, but, you know, very sadly, Big E's got the neck injuries, and nothing is worth that. Health and first foremost. But yes, that's how I feel about it. I hope he finds closure, mostly, because he did provide to my childhood a lot. Like, if I was a professional wrestler in WWE and someone came up to me and said, Simon, do you want to have the last match with Goldberg? I bet Gunther was the same. Yes, that sounds absolutely awesome. So it's just a bit of a pity that we have arrived here. But I get it. It's good for content. I've sat here and I'm making it as well. But don't think we need to worry about the Gunther chop stuff. I don't think that matters. I think that's just kind of an aside that he threw out there. That's very much a behind the scenes. We never would have talked about this 20 years ago, but now that we can, because the business has changed. All the other stuff, I need to hear from Triple H's point of view. I do feel sorry for Goldberg. He doesn't need my sympathy, doesn't want my sympathy, but he did give a lot to professional wrestling. I mean, he took a lot as well. Sure, so everyone says, yeah, but he took a lot. Well, everybody does that. I just think it would have been, I'm going to go back to my original word, it just would have been nice. It would have been a nice time. And I enjoyed all of that, again, apart from the cut-off, and now it feels a little bit side, which sort of sucks. So to answer the question of the title, should Goldberg be pissed off in what WWE did? Yes, he should be, because you can't take that away from him. But at the same time, I don't really know what else we possibly could have done. Like, I really, really don't. Even if you did save it for a pay-per-view, I don't think he would have main evented it like Sting would. That's what I mean. It just feels like Tony Khan is able to sort of chop and change. Even if Sting was in WWE, well, we saw, listen, there's the perfect example, right? We saw how Sting was treated in WWE, and maybe Triple H would do it differently. To be fair, Triple H has treated legends way better, and Goldberg is not a WWE guy. Maybe that's what it is. You know, I'm not saying that anyone cares about WCW or anything like that anymore. We should do, because it was awesome in its own special way. But in AEW, they're so brand new that the legacy of WWE, TNA, especially, we see it all the time, right? And WCW, all of that stuff is kind of wrapped up into that, because they're almost an homage to everything that came before them. Whereas WWE has their 40-year history. So when a John Cena retires, who's been so important, you do the whole, oh my gosh. It'll be the same with Randy Orton. Even a Drew McIntyre will probably get that, because he's just dedicated himself so much to that promotion. Whereas when Sting was in there, I get it was Vince McMahon, but it was treated like a joke. Like, I don't mean that horribly, but the whole Triple H match, I mean, when I say joke, I don't mean he was treated like a fool. I mean, we were, everybody was. Like, the NWO came out to save Sting just so we could have DX there. So that wasn't the story. What are you talking about? So you're not actually tying into the lore of what that character was. Whereas in AEW, all it was about lore and what he'd done here. And oh my gosh, in the rough, he's doing all this. And he's got a protege, a fake son in Darby Allin. I'm kind of just ranting and raving now, but I hope you know what I'm getting at. And that's why I think it would have made more sense. But we didn't do it now. I mean, move forward. Massively intrigued about your own thoughts. And you're allowed not to like Goldberg. You're allowed not to like his wrestling. That's all cool. But just be nice. He's a human being. I've read some things online this week that I don't think are cool. Even if Goldberg sits there and is completely insufferable, well, he's allowed, right? Let him be insufferable. You can call him insufferable, but try and leave it at that. I know it's not going to make a difference, but some of it was just too abhorrent for even me, so I wouldn't be able to handle it. Like the video, share the video, subscribe, click the video on the screen, which is my breakdown of Roman Reigns returning to Raw. Very exciting stuff. Subscribe, notification bell. Otherwise, it is patreon.com/Simon316, $5 to join the watch along and other such prices. Gridmind.com/Simon. You go to Simon, get 10% and more off ships worldwide. Simon316 on all social media. Simon Miller on Cameo for personalized videos. Simon J. Miller on TikTok. Big Cartel and Pro Wrestling tees for Bald Wrestling. Simon Miller t-shirts. We end it there. That's just like a big rant, really. But we're allowed to rant on this channel. That's the whole point. And I had stuff to say about it. I hope maybe I didn't. Goodbye.